I didn't know from where I was sitting whether from a protocol point of view, coming here, I had to walk behind the leadership or this way. So if I got it wrong, please, I do apologize. That's why I came this side. Yeah. May I bid everyone in here good morning, please, and observe the presence of our Honorable Minister of Transport, Umama Chikunga, our Honorable Premier, Ubaba Lisufi, and Ummeki Diboni, our MEC for Transport in Gauteng. We also have amongst us here my colleagues from the board of SANRAL. There might be some other board member from other institutions here. I think I must recognize your presence too, please, colleagues. And that is inclusive of our CEO, whom many people do not know is also a member of the board. So he's included there. Of course, we've got the leadership of the department, operationally speaking. Babu Tlavisa, here you are, and quite a number of other people. I should have mentioned earlier on that we are also fortunate to have Ubabu Kumar, the advisor to the minister. We've got the chief of staff, Umamuzandi Mthembu. We've got media honchos and gurus here. I see Vusi, I see Roy. There are some that I don't know, therefore I won't mention you by name. What I'm trying to say to all of you colleagues is that there's a powerhouse of people in this room today. And indeed, that talks to how seminal the day is to every South African. And therefore, I have been asked on behalf of SANRAL, which is the custodian of this structure here, this building here, to welcome all of you. I am not going to welcome the minister, the premier, and the MEC, because you never welcome a person to their own property, to their own home. SANRAL is a public entity. It is a state-owned company, 100% owned by the state. And therefore, every property in the name of SANRAL is ultimately the state's property. For that reason, I am here to welcome all of you, and I am effectively doing that on behalf of the political principals you see in front of you here, because this is their property. This is their home, and we are custodians of the property as the SANRAL board and the executive team. And therefore, ladies and gentlemen, you are all welcome, but in particular, the members of the media, because it is your role to keep us on our toes so that we may act in a manner consistent with the expectations of the people of South Africa, because if we don't do so, you are the first ones to tell them. As I close, I must say, I am particularly happy today to be standing in front of the media, because for once, I am not going to be facing the tough questions that you always subject me and our board and our executive to. That is not to say you should do that to the Minister, the Premier, and the MEC. All I am saying is please don't do it to me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Chairperson. Thank you very much for that. Kind words indeed, welcoming us into the COC. Really appreciate it, sir. Thank you. I need now to request that MEC Diale Kidibone Tapera to come forward and few comments, and then the Premier will therefore be elevated to this podium by her, and then I will also request, it's not an instruction, Honorable Premier, that you invite the Minister to the stage. Thank you very much. Then I will come back after that. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you very much, Babu Tlhabisa. You just butchered my surname. I am Kidiboni Diale Tlabela. Diale Tlabela is my surname. Thank you very much, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, Premier, Minister, and the Chair. I think, Chair, in Gauteng, we don't answer difficult questions after 8 o'clock, because from 8 to 6 in Gauteng we are working. We must be on the ground, resolving people's challenges. The only time we answer tough questions is from 5 a.m. to 8 o'clock. That's the time we have meetings in Gauteng. Otherwise, we'll answer them at night after doing work. And I hope that members of the media will understand that and not ask my Premier difficult questions, because he must be on the ground as we speak. Thank you very much. I think the Chair said he's welcoming you. I think I'm here to welcome you on behalf of people of Gauteng and the provincial government in Gauteng. And I think you know that we are here because of the Gauteng provincial government and its people. We all rejected the ethos as Gautengers, and we are very grateful, Minister, that the ANC-led government in our country is a listening government, and on behalf of people, people of Gauteng, we really appreciate what you as the national government has done on our behalf. I'm not going to say much, ladies and gentlemen. It's just to plead that don't keep us very long. There's a lot of work to be done on the ground. I don't think my Premier needs introduction, but we call him Mr. Less talk, more work, and more action. Thank you very much. Over to you, Premier.
Thanks so much, MEC. Let me also acknowledge the Program Director, DDG Tlhabisa. Thank you so much. We truly appreciate that. Let me acknowledge Minister of Transport, Minister Chikunga. Minister, thank you so much for this session. We truly appreciate that. I want to acknowledge MEC Kidibone Diale Tlabela. Don't blame her. She slept around 2 a.m. this morning dealing with taxi wars in parts of Gauteng. So thanks, MEC. I also want to acknowledge the chair of the board, Bab Themba Mhambi, and the board members, the CEO of SANRAL, together with staff and members that are here. Minister, we are finally here. It was unthinkable, unbelievable, and unachievable. When we started the debates and the discussions to finally switch off the e-tolls, others thought we were dreaming, and others labeled us as people that are making promises that can't be achieved. I vividly remember when I tabled the State of the Province address and made a commitment that by the 31st of March this year, e-tolls will be history. There are some publications that ran stories that it's not going to be possible. There are some publications that indicated how difficult and impossible that as a province we can make such an announcement. Actually, there is one publication, I see the journalist is here, that I don't want to name and shame, went to such an extent of writing a full article on how I must have, is it Pinocchio, you know, that nose that grows every time you say something that cannot be backed by facts. But I'm excited, Minister, that after those intense, difficult, and painful negotiations, we stand on the side of history, that come midnight tomorrow, all these things will be history, and indeed e-tolls will no longer be a portion of collecting revenue in our province. So, Minister, I want to thank you. I also want to thank the Minister of Finance, Minister Enoch Gondongwan, for the difficult negotiations that we held. The political council that was dealing with this matter, consisting of our MEC responsible for transport, together with the MEC responsible for finance in our province, is an indication that if we indeed open-mindedly engaged on matters that affect our citizens, we can come out with a resolution. Where we are as Gauteng, we want to assure you, Minister, that we are not bad negotiators, and we will keep part of our agreement as we signed it with you and the Minister. I want to assure you that we are excited as a province that finally we can convert our roads from being a parking bay to real freeways and smart freeways so that we can expand them and service them. We are further excited that the resolution on e-tolls bring to an end a history that we didn't want to carry beyond the period that we are in as custodians of this administration that we are leading. But I also want to thank the leadership of SANRAL, led by Ubabu Utemba Mhambi, for tolerating us. I want to thank you for understanding your role during these negotiations. Because sometimes you might have felt left out when the political council was discussing something that you were directly dealing with. But we're dealing with these matters so that we can be in a position to resolve this impasse once and for all. Congratulations to everyone that have been part of these negotiations and these discussions. And I will therefore request the Minister to give you a detailed statement and report on the way forward beyond midnight, so that every citizen of Gauteng must understand what will happen as you switch off these countries. Once more, Minister, together with your colleague in Cabinet, Minister Enoch Godongwane, on behalf of the people of Gauteng, the government of Gauteng, we want to thank you for the role that we've played. Finally, e-tolls are history in Gauteng. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, our Program Director, who also is the DDG, that is Deputy Director General for Roads Branch in the National Department of Transport, Mr. Hlabisa, our Premier of Gauteng, Mr. Panyaza Lisufi, MEC of Transport in the province of Gauteng, Ms. Kedibone Diale Tlabela, my younger sister and a comrade. Special advisors to the Minister and the Premier, SANRAL Board Chairperson, Mr. Temba Mhambi, and other board members, SANRAL CEO, Mr. Reginald Damana, and the executives and staff of our national road agencies, officials from the National Treasury, Department of Transport, Gauteng Provincial Government, as well as SANRAL, the Chief of Staff, ladies and gentlemen of the media, concerned citizens who are following us via various platforms, Good morning. Good morning. Yes, today we are writing yet another history. We are recording yet another important milestone for South Africa. At the end of last month, and to be precise, on the 28th of March this year, we published in the Government Gazette a notice concerning the withdrawal of the toll declaration of the Gauteng Freeway Improvement Projects, popularly known as e-tolls. This declaration will be effective on the 11th of April 2024, that is tomorrow, at 23 hours, 59 minutes, which means that from the 12th of April 2024, road users will no longer be charged for the use of the e-toll network. This means that after midnight tomorrow, e-tolls will no longer exist in South Africa. However, the ring roads that formed part of this scheme will remain national roads. It has been a long process. We started in December 2013, after we upgraded parts of important national roads in Gauteng, which had come a few years before that, that is actually in 2008, to ensure that the economic hub of South Africa, which is Gauteng, is not jeopardized by poor roads. Before the upgrades, the roads were extremely congested and had a negative effect on the country's economy, but of course, in Gauteng's economy. The system of e-tolls was implemented after some consultation had taken place. Was it enough? And could we have done stakeholder engagement differently? Clearly, the resistance by Gauteng motorists and various other stakeholders suggest we could have consulted widely and done things differently. But that is, of course, now water under the bridge. This matter caused a lot of public aggravation and was indeed of great concern to Cabinet of South Africa. It is a concern that led to the formation of a 3-member committee made up of the Minister of Transport, Minister of Finance, and Gauteng Premier. These were charged by President Cyril Ramaphosa in July 2019 to find a solution to the impasse. One of the issues we had to grapple with as a committee was how SANRAL was going to repay the debt it incurred to build this infrastructure. And how do we ensure that the roads remain up to the standards to which our road users have now become accustomed? It has not been an easy process, and decision, of course, was not easy, because we essentially were being asked to deviate from a principle that is universally accepted, that is, you have to pay for whatever you use. That is why in South Africa, we even have pick and pay. You will recall that the Minister of Finance, Enoch Godongwana, announced in his medium-term budget policy statement in 2022 that alternative funding is being found for the GFIP debt, effectively ending e-tolls. When the Minister of Finance made this announcement, he was not incorrect, but there was still a long road ahead. Between myself, as the Minister of Transport, the Minister of Finance, Mr. Enoch Godongwana, and the Gauteng Premier, Mr. Panyaza Lesufi, we finally reached agreement towards the end of March on how to conclusively deal with the debt resulting from the e-tolls, and as a result, we're able to sign a memorandum of agreement to formalize alternative funding solutions for the GFIP debt repayment and deal with the backlog of maintenance and rehabilitation costs. We agreed that the MOA would also regulate the financial and funding contributions towards the SANRAL liability in compliance with the policy objectives and institutional framework for road infrastructure management in South Africa. We were unanimous that terms needed to be set in black and white on the MOA for the Gauteng province to contribute to the backlog of maintenance and rehabilitation cost. We emphasize that the fact that government was already far advanced with its plan to repurpose the e-toll infrastructure to improve mobility, road safety, and combat crime. We're unambiguous on the fact that the user pay principle remains a government policy and commit to continually engage and work together to explore adequate and sustainable funding solutions for road construction, road maintenance, and road upgrades to support economic development. Following the announcement by national government that e-tolls in Gauteng have been officially cancelled, SANRAL has resolved its long outstanding application for increased borrowing limits from Treasury. This will allow the agency to approach the market to unlock funding from the private sector to fund its existing pipeline of capital expenditure projects. The SANRAL CEO and his colleagues will indeed elaborate on this in this, of course, a media briefing. We hope that the resolution of the GFIP funding and the resultant withdrawal of e-tolls will give Gauteng motorists in particular and South Africans in general certainty after a long period of uncertainty. It is important to note that while these roads are no longer going to be tolled, the benefits of improved roads remain, and that the gantries which have been installed for use in the scheme will continue to be used for other functions such as fighting crime. So allow me to give you a high-level overview of the process as it will unfold. Tomorrow, that is the 11th of April 2024, at 23 hours, 59 minutes, 59 seconds, road users will no longer be charged for the use of the Gauteng e-toll roads. The obligation to pay e-toll remains till midnight on 11th April 2024. Road users will no longer be required to do anything when e-toll is cancelled. Importantly, current valid accounts can still be used for payment at toll plazas and other value-added services, including parking. This is critical for the ongoing long-term benefits of interoperability. The tech BIPs will stop after midnight on the 11th of April 2024. The gantry lights and cameras will remain, and they will remain on for road safety purposes, but also for crime fighting, as I've indicated. The e-toll website will be updated with respect to the cancellation, including mobility, tech account functionality for services, i.e. interoperability and parking, etc. The e-toll stalls will remain open as the tech can still be used for interoperability, account queries and other potential transport-related services that will be determined in due course. That also will happen. The e-toll branding will be removed in phases. E-toll invoices will be rolled up until the last day and issued up until this period. Due to potential delays in the postal system, invoices will still be received sometime after 12 April this year. However, no transactions post-midnight on 11th April will appear on the invoice or statement. Trust that the public realizes that government listens, and where possible, it will act to resolve issues that affect the public. We understand that the resolution of this issue might have taken longer than some people wanted, but it involved complex negotiations. Remember, we had entered into a contract which were handled, of course, in a mature and professional manner by all concerned. We must now move forward as a nation and contribute to build on the significant progress that we have made as a country in our first 30 years of democracy. I want to heartily thank the Department of Transport, led in particular by the DG and of course the DDG for roads, the National Treasury, the Gauteng Province, led by the Premier and the MEC, but also to thank the Minister of Finance, Mr. Kotongwane, the people of South Africa for understanding. More so, I also want to thank the President of the Republic of South Africa, His Excellency, Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa, for providing the much needed leadership in a manner that was never easy, a matter that was never easy, and a matter that was very complex. I thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Honourable Minister of Transport. I think that is very clear what is going to be happening from today. It's very clear. The Premier has outlined it, very clear. The Minister has elaborated even further on that, very clear. So I think the media houses here are going to be having some clarities on a one-on-one with the leadership in front here. So, but right now, we thought that we needed to deal with the issues of technicality. There are technical issues which our leadership here will not venture into, but we would like them to have that while they are still in our midst, so that we can engage as a collective here, the technical team, as well as our leadership here, the political leadership. So for that reason, I will request that the CEO of SANRAL, Reg Demana, to come forward and help us with the item on the technical presentation that is going to be done by SANRAL with regards to what we are here for today. That is the GFIP. CEO, you can come forward, sir. Thank you. Yeah. I think the microphone is right here, isn't it?
It's subject of an ongoing debate between Chris and I as to who is taller. But one day we will resolve it, I'm sure. Good morning, everyone. Program Director, thank you for the opportunity. Let me acknowledge the Honorable Minister. You have always been great support to SANRAL through all these challenging times. Premier, thank you. You did indeed apply a lot of pressure that we need certainty. So here we are today. Certainly, we can now see the way forward. MEC Kidiboni, thank you. I know that we've taken you out of a very busy schedule with the matters that you need to deal with taxi associations. Chairperson of the board members, I think senior management and officials in the Department of Transport, of course, SANRAL colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, including those from the media. It gives us great pleasure at SANRAL to be here. I know that for some of my colleagues, it's a bittersweet moment. There are those who have traveled with this journey for 20 years, and I'm going to call one of them to come and just give you a sense of what the e-toll scheme was about. It's quite a massive project, a lot of work that they did, and to give you a sense of what are we leaving behind, what is the legacy of this infrastructure that we have built. The first time I was really taken through this center and looking at what e-toll was, I felt that I think this technology was 10 years ahead of its time. So there's still a lot that we are going to roll out. There's still a lot that we are going to provide by way of value-added services. And you will see that Mr. Kanamea, our engineering executive, will share on some of those things. Very exciting. The minister and some of us went to Prague in Czechoslovakia or Czech Republic last year. We saw exactly this type of center facility there. But what they use it for is totally different to what we do. We really just touch maybe just about less than 10% of its capability. We also know that they modeled this from what they saw in Seoul many years ago. the advisor to the minister told me that they went there with the former CEO of SANRAL, Mr. Nazir Ali, and they came and built it here. Of course, Seoul is many years ahead of us in Korea. So we also want to go back there to see how we can transform our roads into smart roads to ensure smart mobility. So there's a lot that's going to come out of here. This presentation by SANRAL is divided into two parts. One on the e-toll cancellation, and I will then provide remarks on the way forward, including how we are going to unlock massive investment in our toll portfolio projects, just shortly after Mr. Kanamea has run through some of the slides. Thank you. Lo?
Thanks. Well, where must we point it? Okay. Thanks, Honourable Minister, MEC, Premier, SANRAL Board, members of the press, public. Thanks for the opportunity to address you here today. I mean, as you've heard, I've been selected. As you can see, what has happened as a result of e-tolls, I've lost all my hair over the period, so that's why I've been nominated. In terms of just at a technical level, I think the Minister has covered quite a number of some of the high level, so I just need to press it. So I think, I mean, obviously the background to the project, I mean, if one look at the project overall, you would recall that it was a vast project in terms of improving the network. And what a lot of people don't realize and forget is that where this came from was really SANRAL, or South Africa, being awarded the host nation status for the 2010 Soccer World Cup. So in May 2004, South Africa was awarded the host nation status for the 2010 Soccer World Cup. A lot of you will be recalling it included, obviously, the stadiums in the host cities, but there were various commitments that South Africa gave in terms of hosting the Soccer 2010 World Cup. You will remember all the airports, the work that had to happen at the airports. And part of the commitments of hosting the Soccer 2010 World Cup was road infrastructure improvements in and around a number of the host cities. Part of that was these major improvements that we required here in the Gauteng because of a number of the stadiums that were actually located, both for the opening ceremony, closing ceremony, all of those here in the Gauteng province in terms of that. So if one then look at the process in total, we had 201 kilometers of road that needed to be upgraded as part of that commitment. The upgrading that happened at the time, obviously, as we all see, and I think a lot of us forget how the roads used to be in terms of it, but we've ended up with a minimum of 4 lanes per directions, in certain parts actually 6 lanes or more. A major improvement was all the interchanges that you see and today take for granted, but just look at what all these interchange improvements has done in unlocking development. If you think of Waterfall City, what has happened there, what was there before, I mean, go and look at Google, look at the photos. If you think of Menlyn Park, Menlyn Main, for example, what was there, just think of the R21 and all those warehouses that you see being constructed there. None of that would have been possible without the improved mobility and access these improvements unlocked on the network. So obviously, and I'll in the next slide just touch on the timeline, obviously these improvements had to be funded. So part of the big challenge we had in terms of the hosting of the 2010 World Cup is that we were all, I'm just waiting, we were all put on the same timeline. What I mean is AXA had to finish the airports by the same time we had to finish the roads, by the same time the stadiums had to be finished. So suddenly all of us had the same demand on funding and going to the Treasury to try and obtain funding. So what happens originally, and I know the province don't like this, but the province actually in 2003 gazetted the proposal to toll the roads in terms of the Gauteng province. So Jack van der Merwe was very proud in terms of that pronouncement. That then obviously didn't move. In 2004, we were awarded the host nation status. So what happened in 2005, we then had to go back with a proposal to say, these are the required improvements in the Gauteng. How are we going to fund this? So we went to Treasury, we requested, and then obviously, as we said, with the stadiums, with the airports, with all of that, we were really indicated that funding is tight for all of these investments that are required. And that's then how the process then started, with a submission to the Minister in terms of proposing that these improvements can be implemented and unlocked using private funding and recovered through the latest toll technology that became available at the time. So it's important to understand that the open road tolling concept, why it was elected, is because conventional toll plazas, like you know them with booms, can only manage 50,000 vehicles per day. Thereafter, they become a major bottleneck. So you'll be spending most of your time in the queue to pay for tolls. So that is why this technology of open road tolling, which just became available in the world, was elected to implement it in terms of the mechanisms to then collect the revenue that is required to repay the loans. So if one look at the timeline, then we approached Cabinet with the proposal. In 2007, Cabinet gave approval for the proposal to fund the improvement of these roads using the toll funding mechanism. That was then pronounced in March 2000 or launched in 8 October 2007 by the then Minister of Transport. We then went through the public consultation process, and in 28 March 2008, the roads were gazetted as toll roads. The reason why, that then enabled SANRAL to access private funding in terms of borrowings that then enabled us to implement these much needed improvements we've been making use of over the 201 kilometers of network. You will recall in 2010 the roads were not finished, but we had to stop working while we had the Soccer World Cup. Thereafter we finished the roads, the final surfacings, and then when it came in 2013 to start the tolling process, there was once again various engagements at the time that delayed the actual activation of the tolling. There was once again, as indicated by the Minister, a committee that investigated. The outcome of that was a reduction in the originally proposed tariff per cent kilometre, the introduction of a monthly cap, and then, as you will see in the system, in 3rd December, the toll went live, originally 3 December 2013. Obviously, once it went live, there was major public resistance, as indicated by the Minister. That resulted into establishment of various committees that looked at the affordability, that looked at various options in terms of the process over then. That then once resulted in further dispensations in terms of reductions in tariffs and things that then got implemented in 2014-15. And then obviously the system was running, but then obviously increasing public resistance over time against the system. That then resulted in 2019 in once again another committee appointed by the President to investigate future options and alternatives in terms of that. That resulted in a lengthy process to looking at all various options that are there. In the end, we looked at 8 different options, cancellation being one of those, retrofitting with RAM plazas. There's various options we had a look at, went through in detail, various discussions and everything. The outcome of that engagement process over time resulted in the announcement on 26th of October 2022 by the Minister of Finance that there in principle A decision has been reached in terms of how to fund the outstanding debt of SANRAL related to the GFIP, in terms of the 70-30% split, the backlog maintenance, the future improvements. And the Gauteng province was then given by the Minister of Finance various options to look at. That then resulted in a further detailed engagement process between the parties involved. And finally, agreement was reached between National Treasury and the Gauteng province over the mechanisms, how the 70-30% payments will function, and all of that. And with that agreement reached, it enabled SANRAL to then place the Gazette. And as per the SANRAL Act, once we place a Gazette in terms of a new toll road, a toll tariff, or the withdrawal of a toll declaration, it only becomes effective 14 days after the date of Gazette, and that's why it's switching off on the 11th of April, as we see. So I think the cancellation process, I think the Minister has elaborated in detail on this. I think what's very important to understand, one, the e-tag is a payment instrument. The e-tag, although heavily relied upon in GFIP as a mechanism to assist in identifying you, but remember, if you didn't have an e-tag, we used your vehicle number plates. But the e-tag as a payment instrument remains effective and operational countrywide. So I think that's the critical message. The e-tags are not stopping working today. On the 11th, your e-tag account or your e-toll or your account that you have at the facility doesn't stop, because it's continued to be used at all plazas countrywide. And if we look at in other provinces where there's no e-toll close by, the increased use of tags have ramped up substantially there because of the benefits you have for using an e-tag when going through a conventional plaza in terms of reduced delays, no physical having to open a window, handing over cash, your credit card, or any of those things. So the e-tag remains operational. I think that's the critical message that everyone needs to understand. You will continue to be able to use it at all conventional plazas throughout South Africa. In that regard, South Africa is unique. We're one of a few countries, less than 3 in the world, where a single tag works countrywide. It is really something that we have been very proud of as South Africa. If you go to countries in the United States, you'll see some of the cars has got like 5, 6 tags in their windscreen, because each toll road has got its own tag. It's really something we're very proud of, having this interoperable system, one tag for the whole country. And as you've seen there, the same tag, the same number plate, there's various additional things that you can do in terms of the use of that once you opt in for paying for parking. And there's various new additional functions we will add going forward in terms of the use of your mobility account for paying for services that reduces the need for you to have cash on hand or even hand over your credit card and things. So the technology, although not used any longer going forward for e-toll collection, the technology remains, because it's got so many benefits that we will then roll out and deploy into other sectors in the market in terms of it. So I think once again, as indicated, what's important to understand, the lights and the gantries will remain on. The lights are not going to be switched off. They're going to be used for other purposes, but the tags will stop beeping. And from midnight on the 11th, you will no longer be receiving any of the transactions rolling up onto your account in terms of that process. In terms of the repurposing of the infrastructure, I mean, I've touched on the interoperability, I've touched on the parking payment solution, account-based ticketing. This is also an initiative where the same technology here we're busy piloting in Rustenburg, Polokwane, but we're also working with the Taxi Association, where this mobility account you will be able to use for public transport, to pay for public transport. In terms of your account and all of that, with your mobile phone, with the app on the phone. And that is really a big initiative. We've already demonstrated interoperability, where from taking in Johannesburg, in terms of the BRT system, onto a metro rail system, onto a Prasa, and off with just one kind of ticket, you were able to pay and process that whole transaction, because that really, once again, will unlock for the daily public transport user major benefits, and not one having to carry cash around in terms of it, but also ease of payment and keeping track of transactions. So that is a major development area. Road safety, law enforcement, as you can see, has been mentioned quite a few times in terms of these technologies. The SANRAL app, so there's a mobile app that you can top up your account with on your mobile phone. You can look at your account balances and all of that. You can administer your vehicles and things like that. So that will all remain. In terms of the resources, in terms of the people here, as you can see, there's a lot of repurposing that is planned to happen, and a lot of the technology will be repurposed for these other applications, resulting in a large number of the individuals that are currently working on the e-toll related matters being able to be retained going forward. But those details will still be unpacked and sorted out. Thanks.
I think, as you can see, those who have been with the system for 20 years, they have a lot to say about it. It's typical of engineers. They love their roads. But where to from here? I think at SANRAL, our purpose is really building South Africa through better roads. That's what we do. We manage the national road system, and through that, we build a better South Africa. We build better infrastructure. We build wealth through investment in infrastructure. And that's what we do, and we will continue to do. Coming to what has this project unlocked, you can see pictures of Allendale waterfall development now in 2024. At the bottom left of that, you will see very clearly the development in waterfalls, including Mall of Africa. So that's what infrastructure does. That's what our roads do. Simplistically put, we attract investment. I'm talking about fixed investment. Fixed capital formation, it's what we lead through our infrastructure. We go where there's nothing, and people follow us. You will see at Linwood, once again, all those developments in mainland Maine, and all of that. Close to that, Garsfontein, that was also a new interchange we had to put there to provide access to upper main lane and further areas. Now, where are we? As we sit, we've ended our financial year. We've done phenomenally well. We had some legal challenges late last year, which led us to cancelling a whole lot of tenders late in the year. But we got back with speed. We accelerated our processes, and we have ended up very well. Of course, these numbers still have to be audited, but we are quite proud of the achievement. Indeed, the ramp up in business activity has been very pleasing to me, following almost 9 months of no activity, really. You can then look at that slide around expenditure. This is a very big business. It drives a lot of cash into the economy. Building roads and all of that means buying materials, the supply chain impact, creation of jobs, temporary as they might be or short-term as they might be. It keeps the economy moving. It keeps a lot of sectors supporting that. So you can really see that the numbers have increased almost double to what they were in the previous year, just really indicating that accelerated rollout of infrastructure that we are undertaking in SANRAL. If you look at our major projects, a lot of you will know N2, N3, Moloto Road, Wild Coast, N2 Emelo to Richards Bay. These are all the critical routes that carry a lot of freight, trucks and all of that, and public transport. And of course, movement of people. They facilitate trade, movement of people, tourism, and many other issues. So These are our flagship projects. But what has the cancellation of e-toll, as we said, it had prevented us from accessing private funding because we didn't have the borrowing limits. Treasury has now approved that. So that's the future we are looking forward to as SANRAL. We've built what we've done, e-toll is here, but it's unlocking further investment. What is that investment? You can see N1 corridor. So N1 from Vela Vela, that is Kranskop toll gate, up to the north. We need to split the traffic. The traffic, you will know that the roads is usually 2 lanes separated by a solid barrier. We now need to split traffic, as you find from Kranskop back to Gauteng. That will lead to better safety, better mobility, because a lot of cars have head-on crashes. They do U-turns and all of that. When it's moving slowly during busy holiday periods, people start driving unsafely in that. So we need to physically separate traffic in each direction. Major project that we are embarking on, all the way up to Musina border. You look at N2 corridor, of course, this is now in between the N3 and N2 in KZN. There are certain areas that are tolled. Those toll projects require investment. Some of you who go to Durban will know a lot of work heading into the airport, King Shaka. But post King Shaka Airport, it's a toll road. We need to increase that expansion, number of lanes and all of that. And of course, N3 corridor, I've already mentioned that. So this is the future we are looking forward to. As I indicated, engineers love building roads. They've not been servicing the toll roads. In certain areas, they look quite shabby. But we have now reached a point where we are able to go back to the market to do that. Now, this is also one of our very exciting projects, Huguenot Tunnel in the Western Cape. The tunnel is still one tunnel. We do need to now equip the second tunnel. You can see the picture in the bottom right. The hole has already been drilled. So back in the days when it was done, there was always an expectation that traffic will increase to the point that we need to equip the second tunnel so that once again we separate traffic. Very high traffic area. It has reached points at which it exceeds 10,000 vehicles per day. From a safety point of view, internationally we are required to separate the traffic. This is a major project for us in the toll portfolio, and we've instructed the team that we need to have this project on the go by the end of the calendar year. We need to have a contractor. We need to have work starting. So in future, this is what you will see in the next slide. Two boreholes that are moving, one to the north, one to the south. One of the flagship projects within SANRAL. We're very proud of this tunnel, the longest road tunnel underground in Africa, a very high advanced technology that we have there. I think just lastly, you will see the work we are doing on the R21. It was part of the e-toll network. Very pleased that the Premier and MEC Mamavolo have agreed that they will contribute to backlog maintenance, which will lead us to doing more of what we are doing on the R21. So we will be replacing the surfaces, resealing and all of that, and hopefully it will return this entire network to its former glory in the next 2 to 3 years. Of course, we must say, you know that there's always inconvenience when you have to work on the road. So please budget for increased time when you're traveling to and from the airport because construction work is taking place. So I think lastly, Minister, thank you once again for getting us to this point. The switch off has fully been explained, the deadline, when it will take place. This facility, the infrastructure we've delivered, very key towards maintaining many other things in Gauteng. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, we will then move towards a Q&A. I've been told that Program Director, our GM of Marketing and Communications, Mr. Mona, will facilitate a short Q&A for us before we then take a break. Thank you.
Thank you, CEO DDG Hlabisa, who came before me to direct the proceedings. Let me recognize collectively our political leadership here, recognize the board of SANRAL, I recognize fellow senior managers in DOT and SANRAL, and of course, ladies and gentlemen of the media. As DDG Hlabisa said earlier, we have a full house from the media, predictably because we are dealing with a matter that has grabbed public and indeed media attention for just over a decade. So we are looking at engaging with your good selves, members of the Fourth Estate, this morning. We will take questions, 3 questions in each round. There may be questions that will come online from the journalists who are following virtually, and Luando is going to coordinate those and bring them to our attention. I'm going to take the first 3 questions in the first round. I recognize the lady over there, I recognize Roy, I recognize you, madam. And then I'll come to the other hands. Yes. And please introduce yourself and the media house that you represent. Let's have the mics roving.
Thank you very much. My name is Diabo Seto from SAPC TV News. My question 1 is firstly linked, I need a clarification. Is the team saying that the debt that has been incurred by motorists pre-tomorrow midnight, they're still liable to pay for whatever they had incurred? So if you have a debt of, say, 30,000 rand, that does not necessarily mean that that debt has been scrapped, which means that you are still liable to pay for that. I need confirmation of that. And secondly, to the SANRAL team, they had indicated that they'd be going to the market to be able to plug this gap. Are they able to share details of the financiers they're approaching, if there's been any headway being made, how much that's going to add to the debt of SANRAL? Thank you.
Thanks. Roy?
Thank you. Roy Cocaine from MoneyWeb. My question also relates to the debt. And first of all, how do you plan to enforce payment of that debt, seeing that that has been a major problem? And something that was touched on by one of the speakers related to the continued use of e-tags. From the cancelling of e-tolls on GFIP, will that tag still reflect the debt that has been accumulated over time? Because people will not recharge that tag if money that they put in to use on tolled roads anywhere or at gantries, they will not recharge their tag if that money is going to be used to pay their old debt. Thank you. Thanks, Roy.
Let's move the mic over this side.
Thank you, Anastasia Mkhobu for Jacaranda FM News. My question is for the Premier. Can you please just elaborate on how the large and the gantries are going to be used for crime fighting purposes? And I don't know if this can be for the Minister or for you, the Premier. Has a decision been reached on who's going to be responsible for maintenance? I know that it was one of the negotiations.
Thank you. Can I have one mic for the head table so that the principals don't have to come to the podium? You want them to come to the podium for optics purposes? Okay, let's start with the Premier.
Thanks so much. Well, let me start with the maintenance part of it. There were 3 areas that we agreed with both Treasury as well as the Department of Transport through the Minister. Amongst those three issues were the matter of maintenance. Actually, it was it was the last resolution that we took amongst all the resolutions, because it was a very difficult area, but we thought as Gauteng is taking us to the next level of developing smart highways in our province. The reason it was difficult was because these roads don't belong to Gauteng. They belong to national. And the maintenance aspect of it meant that we are maintaining something that is not ours. But because of the partnership arrangements and the agreements that we've developed, and that the e-tolls was phase 1, there is phase 2, there is phase 3. And we have deep interest in phase 2 and phase 3. We want to take Gauteng roads to the next level. And therefore phase 2 and phase 3 will assist us. But you can't go to phase 2 and phase 3 with roads that are bad. And therefore they need to ensure that the maintenance component of it is alluded to or it's supported to. We then concurred and agreed to it as Gauteng. You will see, if you go to the speech of the MEC responsible for Treasury, we've already filtered that element in our current budget so that we can unlock this process. So we are comfortable. We've put a certain figure as well. I think it's 4 billion, if I'm not mistaken. MEC and CEO, we've put 4 billion for that aspect, so that we can deal with this issue of maintenance. It's very important to maintain these roads. If we can't, they will collapse. And as I've indicated that in the morning and afternoon, you can see that our freeways become parking bays, because this matter was outstanding. Now that we've cleared this matter, it allows us to maintain, broaden, and do whatever that we want to do, because that confusion is over. So that is why we are more than excited that by midnight tomorrow, this part of our roads is going to be history, and that we're entering a new era. What are we going to do with countries? There are 3 areas as well that we have keen interest. We've deposited them to the minister, and the minister and the team, they are putting the necessary technical teams. The first one, we need these cameras. All these countries underneath, there are CCTV cameras. We are on a mission as this province to fight crime. And these cameras are crucial in fighting crime, tracking missing cars, or tracking lost goods, or tracking missing individuals that are kidnapped and other things, and many other things. So we have a huge interest in ensuring that those particular cameras are connected to a provincial command center. The second area is that we have a huge revenue gap that is developing out of this agreement. So we need to put all our necessary energies to have a new resource or revenue mobilization. And one area of revenue mobilization is what MEC Kidiboni Dialet must do, is to collect revenue from motorists. And the difficult part is that with the collapse of some of our municipalities, they do some function on our behalf. They take their own portion and pass over a larger portion to us. But because they're struggling to pay either ESCOM or salaries and other things, the money that they collect on our behalf becomes an easy bailout for them to pay ESCOM, because we are a government institution. We can't do anything. So we want the offices or the kiosks of SANRAL that are in our malls, that are in our highways, we want to utilize them for DLTC services. So it's part of the infrastructure that we want to tap in. But also, you know, we run NASISPAN. We don't want the workers that we're dealing with this issue of e-tolls, that their jobs must come to an end after midnight. No. We want to engage in discussions on how best we can utilize them for the function that we have. So it's part of the discussions that we're going to deal with. But I think it was very clear. What is key is that the countries can be utilized for also speed enforcement and many other things. I mean, you've got many things that, so that's the reason why we want the countries to be kept, and then we will then utilize them as the province. And we're happy that those discussions have started with the ministry together with SANRAL. Thanks. Thanks.
Thank you, Premier. When Premier says, and many other things, he just doesn't want to make the naughty chaps cleverer. So some of the things we want to mention. Minister, you may want to reflect on the inputs made by the Premier.
Thank you very much. As the Premier has indicated, Gauteng will fund the roads, but they will remain national roads, and therefore they will remain SANRAL roads, and therefore SANRAL, using that money, will operate and maintain the roads, and therefore they remain national roads. They will do this, SANRAL will do this on behalf of the Department of Transport, because they are our state-owned entity. Yes, indeed. On the issue related to debt, in terms of the law, the motorists are still obligated to pay. That's an obligation in terms of the law. On how we'll enforce or not enforce, that's a matter that we have not discussed. We'll be attending to that as time goes on. But otherwise, in terms of the existing law, there's an obligation that those who have used the road up until tomorrow, they will have to pay. But of course, if there are challenges, that's the matter that we'll be looking into. I think another question is how to enforce payment. I think I've responded to that question. I think that is all. I think those are the questions that were asked.
The scrapping.
I think that one is for SANRAL. If I speak about money, then it will be wrong with me. But I think SANRAL will be able to respond on that one, how to go to. Yes, the CEO is coming. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister and the Premier, for the answers. I see the... Okay. No, we will fix it later. So, just to assure Gauteng residents, the maintenance of the roads that Gauteng is paying for is what we call the backlog. And it's only limited to 4.1 billion rand paid over 4 years. And is the backlog similar to what you see on the R21 to the airport? So we are saying over the last couple of years, we would have done certain maintenance and all of that using money collected from the e-toll scheme. And because we didn't collect enough and all of that, and national government had been assisting with managing the debt, Gauteng graciously agreed to cover the backlog. So it's really the resurfacing of surfaces that should have already been resurfaced. But the overall maintenance of e-toll runs into 10, 12 billion. So Gauteng's contribution is for over 4 years, but the balance is still coming from the grants that we receive from national government. I just want to make sure that we are not leaving Gauteng residents, of which I'm also one, thinking that they are now just responsible for all the roads and all of that. It's just a contribution to settling this whole issue of e-tolls. But of course, SANRAL will remain, as the minister said, the implementation agent of the roads as part of national government. Now, the e-tax, the account that we keep records what we call current debt. So current debt, as you run through, for those who have opened accounts, e-toll accounts, like myself, I don't know if you have one, Roy, like myself, it means all the current debt that we have in there, if you were to deposit money and you still owed, that money will go into settling that. We think that the current accounts will be out of date after 30 days or so. After 30 days from 11 April. So more or less, if you were to now open a new account, get a tag somewhere around 30 days later, that would be what, May, 30 May or so, you are starting on a clean slate. Your tag is not encumbered, doesn't have anything. Your account is not encumbered. And of course, the policymakers will still decide on what to do with debt that is older than the current debt. I hope that makes sense. So any debt that is current, 30 days old, all of that, if you have an account, you are owing, you put money into it, of course, the e-tag account will help itself. But after that, you can then use it freely. So that's really just that, Roy. And then, of course, as for the historic debt beyond the current account, we will see. But otherwise, people who have accounts and have debt can wait. We don't want to encourage that. Those who don't have accounts can go immediately and open an account on the 12th, on Friday. And their accounts start from zero, and you can then use the accounts. What we are also releasing is a frequently asked questions. So it's a long list of a document with frequently asked questions and answers, and some of these things will be explained in there in terms of the different status. Funding plans, we have been given borrowing limits of about 16.5 billion that we can go out to the market to supplement the cash we generate from other e-toll routes. So we will embark on that process. We have a listed bond on the JSE. It has capacity of over 15, 16 billion, so we can tap the bond market. Our bonds are very well liked. Infrastructure is liked, roads are well liked. Toll collection outside of e-toll is 99.9%. So people enjoy that. Traffic has been proven. The biggest risk in a toll road is traffic. So we don't have a problem with traffic. We've been running these roads for over 20 years. So there's a lot of appetite for that. You will see as and when we go out and raise money, because we have to release such type of information as a listed debt program. Some discussions are far advanced, but we have not been actively looking for that because we didn't have the instrument, which is the borrowing limit approval by the Department of National Treasury, as well as the Department of Transport. And they were waiting to resolve this e-toll. You can imagine e-toll debt is 43 billion. Now you approve that someone must go borrow without knowing how that will be dealt with. It becomes a problem. So national government together with province will take care of the historic debt. We then go to the market to raise new money to fund expansion, maintenance of other roads, and we will pay through the collection of tolls in the conventional toll roads, where the collection is 99.99%. I hope that makes sense. Okay. Is there anything else? I think we're covered. Okay.
All right, thank you for that round. Let's take the second set of questions. I note the gentleman here. I note the gentleman with the hat. Roy will come in the third round. I note the gentleman in front in a black top. Your name and your media outlet.
Good morning. My name is Raymond from Netwerk 24. To the Premier Lesufi, I think earlier in 2023, you mentioned that those that paid the e-toll, they be refunded. Is that still on the table? And then after your province of the your provincial address, you said that you will go, the Gauteng government will go out to take loans to pay their debt to SANRAL House. That planning, and have you secured a loan already? And lastly, you mentioned a few times that the debate surrounding, the end of ETOLs was intense. What was intense about it?
Thank you. A note to say. Let's pass on the mic to him.
My name is Sipho Mapena. I am with the City Press. My question is directed to the Minister. Minister, you mentioned that you could have consulted better when you were introducing the scheme, and the biggest resistance was based on the fact that there was not enough consultation. Do you perhaps believe you owe South Africans, particularly people of Gauteng, an apology for forcing down this scheme on them? Thank you.
Right, let's have the third question.
Thanks. Aviwem Gila from eNCA. Mine's maybe a clarity-seeking question from the Premier. Just around, I understand National Treasury is supposed to take care of 70% of the historic debt, and the Gauteng government itself, 30%. I just want an understanding then, why are motorists still expected to pay if it seems that government itself is taking care of the historic debt, or what will they then be paying for? And maybe just to add on to my colleague there, in terms of the loans, how far we are on that?
Thanks. Minister, shall we start with you and then the Premier follows?
Thank you very much. Was there consultation? Yes, there was. And the presentation by Mr. Kanameya actually proved that there was consultation. Was it adequate? That can then be debated. Because sometimes you don't even know as to what an adequate consultation is or inadequate consultation is. However, the people said it was not adequate. And therefore we listened, and that is why we are where we are today. That people said we're not consulted enough. The enough cannot even be measured, or not enough cannot be measured. I think for the mere fact that today we are here making this history, closing the gantries, stopping the e-tolls, it actually means that we not only are saying to the people of South Africa, sorry, but we are saying we've heard you. That's what we're saying to the people of South Africa, of Gauteng, that we have heard you. And having heard you, we're not just thinking about it, but we are actioning what we have heard from yourselves. And that is why on the 12th of this month, April, ETOLs will be history. And that's, so we're actioning these things. We're not just talking. So it's not about a narrative, but it's exactly what we're supposed to be saying. The refunding, there is law, but I think maybe the CEO can also explain that one. There is an existing law. In terms of the existing law, it says if you've used those tolled roads, you must pay for them. And that is why the CEO was actually tracking. Why are we paying for that? First, it was to deal and to service the loan itself, but also the construction and maintenance of the roads. So you don't construct a road and say, thank you very much, it will live forever. You still have to construct and to maintain the road. So there's still a law, we've not repealed it, and on the basis of that, yes, people must pay. The debt, the old debt that we're talking about, we are still to look into that to say how are we going to deal with it as a country. So there is no decision as of now. But if you pay for the road, you might be paying for its construction, but you might also be paying for its maintenance. If there was to be a loan, you would probably be servicing that loan. But in this case, there will still be the roads to be maintained. The R21 is actually, it's the face of South Africa. Any person who arrives in South Africa, it's either will get into board the Gautrain or will drive on the R21. And that is why we were extremely concerned, we still are, and we're happy that now construction is happening. We were very concerned about the state of that road because it mirrors South Africa and its roads. It doesn't matter what you see thereafter, but if you are driving from the airport, you get into R21, and it says this is the kind of roads that we have in South Africa until you drive on other roads. And that is why we are very happy that SANRAL now is on that road as in constructing that road. I was called to say, no, but there are delays and so on. Why are you constructing during the day? And I said, no, but even if we construct during the day or night, you will not drive on the part of the road that is under construction. And therefore, people must just budget for the delays. But we're very happy that we are now constructing that road. And SANRAL is doing that because we say they must keep their good roads good. Thank you.
Thanks, Minister. Raymond, let me start with your payment and refund. I always say the people who misrepresent you expect you to buy in their misrepresentation and to account for their misrepresentation, which is very unfair sometimes. I was on a show called Money Show with Bruce Whitfield on 702. And I think you should listen to that tape. During the negotiations, amongst the issues that was outstanding was how are we going to handle people that we have paid and people that have not paid. That was my representation, that we are still in negotiations on e-tolls, the scrapping of e-tolls. But amongst the many issues that we needed to resolve was this matter of people that need to pay the outstanding debt and those that have paid, whether we should refund them. And someone wrote a story that I said we need to refund to those that have paid. I said it's part of the negotiations and the discussions. And I think I had discussions with Roy as well. He took his own angle as well, but it's none of my business. Because people write things that they can't account themselves and they want you to account because they quoted you. So where we stand, that's where the minister is saying. The basis of the disputes on e-tolls was either lack or sufficient consultation. And therefore the payment or enforcement of debt, we must subject it to consultation so that people must not say we're not consulted as well and come and say, can you see, they are taking a decision without consulting us. So we'll consult, there's a technical team that will establish, we'll consult. It's not an easy thing. There's an element of SARS. People have paid tax on this. There are people that have hired cars. We have been charged for e-tolls. The truck industry, the ownership of the cars have changed from one person to one. So it's a lot of things that still need to. Hence, we feel that consultation will be enough so that when we have concluded consultation, we can be in a position to make an announcement on this matter. But I've never said we must pay people. I said it's amongst the outstanding obstacles in resolving this matter of e-tolls. And I hope this clip, program director, will be kept for long periods so that I'm not accused even beyond my stay in this world. The second issue is the loans. And it also corresponds with your third question to say the negotiations were tough. How tough or intense they were. They were intense because these are public funds. This is not our funds. And remember, when the minister announced the removal or the process to deal with the issue of e-tolls, they said how they must pay 60%. That was the initial, that was the initial to say we must pay 60%. And we went to the negotiating table. It went to 50%. We went back to the negotiating table until we reached at 30%. I could sense that here I can't push the minister further. Let me just accept from 60 to 30%, at least I've got 50% discount. So we settled for 30%, and that's the reason why it was intense. The first announcement we made that the e-tolls will be history, it was on the basis that we agreed on the 30%. So we thought that it will then, we'll sign and just say it's fine now, e-tolls are history. That was last year, I think, Minister. You said, no, we'll pay 30%, we'll deal with these things, it's fine, let's agree. And I was pressurizing the minister, no, let's announce these things are gone. And the Minister of Finance came as, you can't just say you'll pay 30%, show us the money. We have a proposal as National Treasury. We give you a certain allocation every year, we'll pull the 30% from your allocation. We have to say no. Because if they pull the 12 billion from our budget, it will affect schools, it will affect hospitals, it will affect many things. So we have to say, Minister, wait, give us time. Let's go and look for, and that's the intent of the negotiations and the discussion. So we had to show the money, because it was not just we agreed to pay 30%, but how will that money be paid? I think it comes to Aveda question to say how far we are. We've approached certain financial institutions that are favorable, but because these are public funds, we need to request them to make presentations to us. Indeed, there's an appetite from financial institutions to settle this on our behalf, so that we can then enter into repayment. So it's at an advanced stage, and we're excited with the appetite to deal with this matter. So as soon as we reach the final agreement with the financial institution, we'll honestly notify you. Even though, Raymond, the negotiations and discussions were intense, emotional at one stage, misrepresentation, because some of us are in the Twitter world, so the ministers will be angry to say, but when I do it Twitter, you have not finalized it. Because if we are asked to comment, you don't run away. I mean, because that's the sin I'm paying from being a former media person. So people will say, no, you know, the Premier is talking things that we have not agreed. And the ministers will boycott me for 3 months and will come back. So those are the difficulties. But it was in good spirit. It was not malicious. And we are quite excited that finally tomorrow, Minister, will switch off that button and in the ultimate end attend to the issues of road improvement in our province. Yeah, I hope I've responded to your question. Thanks.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Premier. Another round. You still have an appetite. There's the gentleman in the blue suit. I note you. I'll give Roy and the lady behind Roy another opportunity, and hopefully this is the last round. I think the appetite is waning now.
Good morning, Ziniko Mhlaba from Newsroom Africa. My initial questions were asked, but I've got follow-up questions now, especially to the Minister and the Honorable Premier. Minister, what lessons is national government taking from this process? One would say this is a bit confusing because we've got a national government that has its own arm twisted by provincial government in terms of expressing a lack of engagements between the two spheres of government before this process was started. So as national government, what lessons are you taking from this? Second question is, how binding is the memorandum of understanding between the province and the national government? And should the province not live or keep it at the end of its deal, what's going to happen? Are we going to go back to negotiations again? So I understand the memorandum of understanding is there, but how binding is it? To the Premier, Premier, can you assure the residents of Gauteng that at no point will basic services be affected by your agreement to the national government? And going forward, should those plans that you have in terms of approaching other financials, should they not work out, how much of a priority will this money that has to be paid be as far as the provincial treasury and provincial budget? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Roy?
I've just got two questions, they're not long. The first one actually does touch on what the previous question was raised, and that was related to the lessons from government, and I want to take it a little bit further. What is it, do those lessons actually include the fact that urban tolling, there's resistance to urban tolling because it also means it increases the cost of people going to work, and that where there's the CEO of SANRAL said on long distance tolling there's a 99% payment rate, so there is a lesson there. Just if they could explore that aspect. There also is one other issue, and that is why was Gauteng singled out for e-tolls? At the time, Lau Konemeier said that the investments had to be funded somehow, and they were related to the 2010 World Cup. But there was other road infrastructure that was developed around the country. But those provinces were never, they never had to introduce e-tolls. Why was that?
Thanks. Let's take the last question.
Thank you. It's Diabo again from SABC TV News. The question is to the SANRAL CEO. Seeing that now this position has been taken, can you confirm the number of kiosks that you have created as SANRAL that were obviously taking care of the whole e-tolls project? And if you can confirm that because of this decision, jobs will not be impacted by those that are working there, obviously increasing the number of unemployed people in the country. Can you give us that undertaking that operationally things like job losses will not be will not take place because of this decision? Secondly, Minister, this one is to you, slightly unrelated to e-tolls, but could you just give us an update on the new driver's card license pilot system that was started at the end of last year in November and was supposed to be finished on the 31st of March. What's been happening there? Have you appointed a bidder? Very little information has come forward about what is happening with the new driver's license cards and that pilot. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's have the Minister and then Premier and then our CEO. Thereafter, DDG Hlabisa will come back to the podium and wrap up.
Thank you very much. What lessons have we learned as National Department of Transport? First, we've been having tolls in South Africa for a long time. And we have been having the conventional tolling system in South Africa, and people have never been against that. The fact of the matter is we introduced the electronic tolling, which of course was urban tolling again. And I think the lessons that we can actually learn from that is the fact that maybe we needed to explain even more. Because as and when the matters were raised, you could actually realize that it's like we're introducing something that South Africa has never had. As a matter of fact, we're actually saying we're moving forward in terms of technology. Whilst you are used to us passing through that toll gate and so on, opening the boom gate, but we can do it electronically. That's the difference. Because the other one is manual, the other one is electronic. And that is all. And we had actually looked at the traffic on the roads that were being tolled, particularly the urban roads. And we're seeing that, but if you're going to install or erect the manual type of or conventional one, it's going to create traffic jam. In fact, it won't happen. So the electronic one will therefore work. But of course, the people said, if it is electronic one, it's us who must pay. We can just decide not to pay. So we pay because we've got to open the boom gate. But if we are to make it ourselves, we may not pay. And that, I think, is the lesson. To say, going forward, if we are to consider tolling any other road, remember of the total network of SANRAL, which is 24,100, it's only about 4,000 that is tolled. The rest is not tolled. But that money which we collect from the tolled roads, it helps SANRAL to attend to non-tolled roads as well. But unfortunately, you can't use the non-tolled portfolio money on tolled road. You can't reverse. That's the problem. It will be an irregular expenditure. And that is the lessons that we have learned. Because I still believe that as South Africa maybe, we still have to engage on how should we fund our road infrastructure. That is an important discussion that we need to embark on. And I think when we do that, we'll have to consult and to explain and to explain. To say how must, if we are to have our road infrastructure being what we need to see, how must we fund them? There isn't any country in the world that only depends on the money that they get from their national treasuries, like we will get from the fiscus in South Africa, and have good roads. And that is why even if people will cry, but the money that we have, for instance, for provincial roads this year is 15 billion rand. Of that 15 billion rand, 3 billion rand is for Sindisiwe bridges. And therefore the money that remains for the 9 provinces is about 13.6 billion rand. Is it enough? Definitely not enough. Because just one road from KZN to Richards Bay will actually, take all that money. So it's important that as South Africa we begin to discuss that, to say, how must we fund? What must be the better funding model for our road infrastructure? And I think as we do that, we'll have to consult and explain these things to the extent that people understand them. Otherwise, it was just the electronic way of tolling the roads. That was the difference, and that is all. And therefore, for me, the lessons that we have learned from this is that if we are introducing something that might sound and look very new, it's important that we walk with the people until they understand what we are saying. And if they do that, then of course they will be prepared to support what we are doing as government. How binding is the MOA? Is a legally binding MOA. Legally binding. No one from us can actually renege, not even the province, not even the national treasury can do it. In an event, you've said, the province of Gauteng decide to renege, there are conditions there. It's clear on what will happen. Remember, we transfer the provincial road maintenance grant to ourselves as national department to the provinces, and therefore it will be easy to recoup our money from that. It's as simple as all that. Was Gauteng province singled out for e-toll? People just objected to it at the beginning of it. Whether we're going to proceed and introduce it elsewhere, but when people said, no, we don't want it, you couldn't even think about any other province. And that is why we couldn't even proceed with it. And therefore, it was not a matter of being singled out. But I think as it was mentioned, it was also talking to what was going to happen in 2010. The number of stadiums, the number of games that were going to be played in Gauteng, and therefore the need for us to add lanes. Those roads are paradise roads. They're beautiful, they're there. We have that infrastructure, and I think it's one other thing that we might have to consider and to appreciate, that despite these difficulties, but we do have that infrastructure. It has led to that mall, the Africa Mall, and many other investments that have happened. And I think it's something that we will have to appreciate. I think maybe the last question I thought would come from yourself was whether I was dressed to kill for this one. Thank you.
Indeed, Minister, you're dressed to kill on this one. It's a very important occasion. Thanks, Minister. Well, the question whether our financial arrangements will affect service delivery or basic services will be affected by the Memorandum of Agreement, no. And that's the reason why there was this huge delay. Would have loved to have made this announcement about the removal of e-tolls almost a year ago. But we needed to prioritize service delivery, because we'd have just been excited and say, we've reached an agreement, we'll pay this amount, we sign. But we have to be clear that if we have to sign and the amount of money is deducted, I can tell you it was going to be catastrophic. There are many projects that were underway within the health infrastructure development in particular, and also education, the roads that we needed to build as well, and many other things. So we have to take a step backward to say how best can we stagger these payments in a manner that does not affect service people. So it was on the basis of avoiding service delivery that we had to have these long discussions and debates on this matter. So where we are is not going to affect service delivery. The only thing, obviously, is that if you have to take out 12 billion from your budget, one way or another, you have to prioritize other things. It's inevitable. Our focus point now is on things that are not affecting service delivery. And that's the area that we want to. Earlier on, I think there's a question that I missed, whether motorists are still expected to pay. I think the team answered it. Come midnight tomorrow, we are relieved. I know the minister and the team don't want to do this. I want to do it, Minister. I want to be sure midnight indeed this thing is off. I want to go there and see it's off, so that I'm satisfied that indeed it's off. Not that I don't trust you, but I'm from but this thing finally is off. We spent sleepless nights on this thing. So we want to see it at midnight tomorrow. So thank you so much, Sabonga. Thank you. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much, Premier. I think taking cue from what the Premier just said, I would request the Minister to come back and sum up everything for us. And I know, Demana, there were some technical questions that were raised. I think you did respond to them. I think you did. But let's request the Minister to have the very final say, and also some matching orders and the word of thanks after that. Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Thank you very much.
Yes, no, thank you very much. I think I forgot to respond to the question on the driving license card. We're at the tail end of the procurement process because the team that is busy with that had to travel to France to see for themselves the machine and so on and so forth. I wouldn't want to go into details about that because I'm not supposed to be in the bidding process at all. But we're at the tail end of that. I can tell you now that before the end of this month, this month we will be printing new driving licenses, and we'll launch at least the first 100 per province, and we've said that. So yes, we are actually moving in that regard. Okay. We do invite the media to our switching of the gaintrace for the purposes of e-tolling collection tomorrow at 23 hours, 59 minutes, and 59 seconds tomorrow, so that all of us together, we say we've made history. You've been with us for the good, the bad, and the ugly reasons. And therefore, you can actually sacrifice your time tomorrow and join us again. I think, honestly, it is again proper that we thank South Africans for supporting us and for being patient with us. This was not an easy process, I must say. There was a contract where it went out to borrow money and signed and entered into a contract with conditions. And for South Africa to then renege or be reneging on that was not an easy thing. And therefore we had to move, and with caution, but with the aim of doing what our South Africans want us to do. And we are where we are today thank you to South Africans for their patience. Let's pay for services, whether it is electricity, whether it is water, whether it is road infrastructure, whether it is anything. I think it will be important that we pay for services. But of course, we'll also consult you, because we are a government that listens when people speak, particularly if they are South Africans. I wish you all a safe journey back to your homes. Please be careful on the road. Don't make mistakes. Don't rush, don't speed. Don't drink and drive. People speed on our national roads that are beautiful. And as such, good as we benefit economically out of those roads, but we're also losing a lot because of the number of accidents that are happening on our beautiful national roads, even as you compare them to the most pothole-riddled roads. Please be careful. But we thank you again. I thank you, Premier. I really want to thank you. In absence, I want to thank the Minister of Finance. I want to thank the Cabinet of South Africa, led by the President. I want to thank SANRAL, Board and Executive, the Department of Transport, DDG Hlabisa in particular. Really, he's been there. I want to thank all of you, the media, for the questions that you have asked. They kept us on our toes, and we therefore had to deliver. And therefore today, if there's one thing that makes me happy, is that we are where we are now. Gantries will be switched off tomorrow once and for all. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister. I think now we are going to have a photo shoot for the leadership right here. They will stand right here. It's nice background. It's a nice background. We can do the photo shoot here. This front.